Should have checked to make sure my microphone was working. Okay, good, cool. I don't know why there's nothing on screen. Doesn't make any sense. Hello, YouTube. What? Why are you not rendering anything? Do I have to refresh the page? Why do my streams always end? Always start so poorly. Okay, I'm just. Okay, there we go. I can definitely see stuff on screen now. Good, good, good. All right. Hello, welcome. I'm making a Hunger Games simulator today because I kind of like remember playing those as a kid online, where they would just sort of simulate it, and then you like went through and I guess filled in the story yourself, because it would just like just generate a an environment. And, well, like, not even generate environment. Like, you put the characters' names in it, would just roll dice and then give you, like, this person killed that person. So I wanted to do that, but with a more, like, actual grounded thing, like items that the players actually have to find, and they have to actually be in proximity to each other to be able to interact. Whereas a lot of those simulators, it's like, oh, yeah, these people met, they killed it. It was like it doesn't actually track any of that. And then there's a game in my Steam library called like Ultimate Arena that kind of does that, where it has a map, but like again, the people just like kill each other with a spear, and it's like they didn't find a spear, they just killed each other with a spear. So I was thinking, make it in Bevy, have like a map where the characters can move around from like tile to tile, and they can only interact if they're like adjacent tiles for melee and within the range of their weapon for ranged weapons, and they have to actually find and or make the weapons. Generate a map, simulate it all. It'd be cool. It's also a good chance to show off the fact that I ported Belly over. So anyone that remembers my Belly video, still one of my most popular videos on YouTube, I've actually ported it to 0.14, so you can now make UI that has a file here that if we just like make it 100% and save, and then it's 100%. So you can actually like modify your UI without changing anything, and like write like CSS code. Like if we go to my UI, it's defined split menu like this. So I literally just say a division that's main, and then it's got a button, and then when I click that button, it changes it to Gen World, and then play. So the first thing, because I did make a little like list of what I plan to do, sort of the order that I want to do them, so that I actually can have some kind of structure to the video. So the first is like to generate the worlds, and this is going to use like noise and terrain maps. So the idea being that we will generate the world and the seed, and then we're going to use noise to generate like a height map, and then we'll create like a mesh that is representative of that height map. So that should hopefully be a good start, I guess. So we go to mod world, and then inside our world we are going to drive a struct, I guess. So we'll get the Bevy preluding. There's always that fun thing of like making games is such a tedious start that like you end up just narrating what you're doing rather than doing anything interesting. It's probably why one of the best streams that I ever did was when I had someone else to talk to during the stream, so it wasn't just me like narrating what I was doing while I was coding. So what we needed is a resource, derive resource. Why is this not working? Struct. This is gonna be the world map. So we're gonna say maybe we'll give it a vector. So entity to no, I guess it's now ID to entity. So the idea with this is we're going to keep a map that links our map cells. So in this case, it's going to be a vector, and it's going to be a vector of entities. This will allow for a dynamic map size where you can like look up what entity then contains all that information about that specific map. The biggest thing I think I'm going to run into is going to be like making it so that like, because this is not like a really an entity component system style thing, because like I'd actually be better off storing the objects inside of an array rather than having them as entities and components, because otherwise I'm going to have to do a lot of lookups. But that's sort of how Bevy is, so this is not necessarily the best engine for this type of game, but it may be in the future. Like, I don't know, like, it's one of those fun things where I gotta start to work things out. So we're gonna then derive resource, and we're gonna derive resource on a map. Why can I not spell map descriptor? And it's gonna have a seed. And the seed's gonna be a 64. This will also be store our noise and allow for map generation stuff. Alright, so it's going to have a size, which is going to be an I vector 2, and that will keep track of everything. So when we say we need to implement world map, and it's going to have fn new, and then we're going to say width, which is going to be an I32 and a height. Also going to be an I32, and this will return a world map. This is also going to need to take components as well, or commands. So why is it taking the commands? Because basically what we have to do is go so for y in 0 dot x height for x in 0 dot width. We need to say so we need our entities array. Okay. Let's go with data because I can't be bothered trying to spell things correctly today. With capacity width times height. Yeah, these should both just be U sizes then. Okay, yeah. So width times height. And then we say data dot push commands dot spawn. We should probably have a struct component. And this is going to be our cell ID. This is more for like retroactively, like if we delete a cell and then respawn a cell or something, we can access it. This is just going to actually be a new type, and this is going to have an I vector 2. So both of these need to be as I32s so that they work with without me having to cast everything all the time. Spawn. So we're going to spawn a bundle. It's going to be a spatial bundle. Well, we should grab that. Spatial bundle default. And she doesn't even need a spatial bundle. I don't think it does, because it's going to be. I know the world will end when I stop making typos. Fucking. And someone in one of my videos was like, hey, like, you look dyslexic. Or they might have done it in the Discord, I don't remember. And they were like, here's a plugin that shows you, like, typos. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I actually, like, will have less typos in my videos and my code because it will spell check me. Except there's certain words that it doesn't like because they're, like, not English words. They're just colloquialisms that are, like, accepted. So, like, I'll open up source code of someone else's project and there'll be, like, a million fucking blue lines because it's like, these are all typos. And, like, they're not. They're just... not necessarily a dictionary word. I could add them to the dictionary, but then I feel like I'm going to end up adding words that are spelt wrong in the dictionary, and that defeats the purpose of the spell check. So I guess we just need a cell ID then. So we're going to put well, X and Y. And then it's going to go here, and we're going to say dot ID. I think I've got the brackets in the right spots. Now, mismatch type for loop, evaluate T. What are you talking about? It's saying I need to remove that for one thing, but that's just... I don't know why you're not... Okay, and then we need to just return our world map with our data and our size being I back to new with our width as I32 and our height as I32. Okay, now it works. Okay. So we should probably just assign a default value to it rather than a width and a height. So I don't know why, but the Game Jam had this as the template that they used for plugins, and I just find myself using it more than I use the actual plugin. Like, rather than making a type and constructing everything, I literally just make a system that takes in. Which is probably why they did it, is because it's a good way of doing it, because you can say app dot insert resource, and then the resource is world map. No. And we want to say maybe 1024 by 1024. It's a lot of cells, and I wonder how well Bevy's gonna handle it. And then we need commands. Ooh, we can't give it commands, which means we need to... Okay, so that means that new needs to not do this, and then that means... Okay. Well, I could give it a from world implementation, but I feel like we should say new, and you just get given a width and a height, and then we'll give it an initialize ability later. So this is just going to be a vec with capacity width times height. There we go. Okay. All right. So then we go down here and we say spawn. And this could probably take in noise. But she'll be a impulse. I should add the noise, which is an F30. No, noise. Noise is, I think it's just called noise, isn't it? It's just the noise crate. I should also add the Bevy edit, please, because this is one of the most important important fucking crates ever, because it lets me not have to worry about shit. Like, whether I fucked up or whether it's something weird going on with Bevy. Like, I was messing around setting up my my scene so that when I came in, I didn't have to wait for everything to compile this scene. And nothing was spawning because I had it spawning the menu when I entered the menu, which is what lets me do this. And I just couldn't work out why it wasn't spawning. It was like, am I just not spawning? I just wasn't initializing the into the menu to begin with, so that was fun. What are we doing? I also have no idea if I have ads turned on at all. Just everyone disappeared, so I am assuming I've got ads turned on. Yeah, I do. My viewers went from 4 to 0 in, so that's usually an indication that an ad ran. Okay, so it's gonna impl noise. I think it's noise FM. So we need access to the noise. It needs to be mutable. Actually, does it? I don't think noise needs to be mutable. So we need noise and we need commands, which is commands. Oh, that's too many instances. Okay, mute commands and I think it's self maybe. Mute self. Interesting. Maybe we don't. Maybe we give it the map descriptor, like mutable access to the map descriptor. Maybe unmutable access to map. So just give it access to the. We'll just copy paste this descriptor. So okay, and then that will run its course. So we need to give the commands, the map descriptor that should allow it to generate the everything. Then what's next? So I guess we initialize the world map. We also need to initialize the map descriptor, which insert resource. Actually, we should probably init resource here because I want to be able to like describe what the map descriptor does without having to necessarily define the map descriptor. And then we go down here and we say simple from world for map descriptor. Then we go here and we say we're just going to return a map descriptor with a random seed. How do I generate a random seed? We could just go rand. But technically, here's another fun chance just to, you know, flex skills that people might want to discover when they're using things. I'm going to say that config debug assertions, and we're going to say that the seed is 42069, because, you know, but then in config not debug assertion, we're going to say the seed is rand thread random dot sample dot get, like so. Why do this? Because it means when we're debugging, you'll always get the same world, but if you're not debugging, you'll get a different world. Like, so when you build an actual release, it'll generate a procedural world, and if you're doing testing, you'll get a constant world. So for debugging purposes, you don't have to worry about shit being, oh, did a seed do this or did it not? Okay. So, what do we want to do next? We're going to go here, we're going to use noise. I also feel like I want to go use rand, and then does rand have a prelude? It does. I'm going to use the rand prelude because I'm pretty sure that gen won't work without it. So noise, it's not a... Maybe it's noise function that outputs an arbitrary... It's not that, it's... FPM, I think is the one. Noise function that outputs fractional Brownian motion. Doesn't sound right. Open simplex. See, the open simplex doesn't stack them, so maybe it is just fractional Brownian motion. So then we need to go here, we need to say noise, which is just going to be FBM, and then, oh yeah, because I then specify it's a simplex. Super simplex or open simplex? What is the difference? Don't know. Interesting. Okay. I don't know what happened to my chat, my fucking video. Like, everyone disappeared, and they haven't come back, which is bizarre. Never had that happen before. like I've had it drop periodically, but like my viewership was slowly climbing, and then suddenly everyone vanished. So, I hope I haven't broken something. Oh, it's very bizarre. I'm gonna jump on the Discord. Oh, I'll jump on one of the voice channels if anyone wants to join. But yeah, people came back as soon as I started talking about how everyone's vanished. It's very weird. Oh, and they're all gone again. So fucking, I don't know what I've done. All right. Anyway, noise. We need to define our noise. So really, we should be going up here and maybe going like, let copy both of these and say let seed equal. Right, we do that, and then we do the same thing and we say let seed equal that, and then we go here and we just say seed. Right, because it means that we can use the same seed that we generate up there to generate the noise. So we want to go noise, and then we're going to say FBM new. You're a pain in the ass, aren't you? Because you have to specify. It does this every time. Okay, so we're going to say like, you know what? I think possibly we might just leave this as it is and just say seed. And then from there we will like work out what we actually want. So what are you expecting? Found U64, expected U... Okay, so apparently it's a U32 that we want. Okay. So from world, and then we do this and we generate that, and that gives us our noise. And then when we come down here and we say generate, we're gonna show for y in self dot size dot y. That's not how you do that. It's 0 dot dot. Okay, and then x, we take the x value, and then we're gonna spawn in the same thing. We're gonna say so we should probably also then face derive component, and this is gonna be struct cell no height, and then F32. I don't know why I'm going to store this data on the thing. I think I'm just trying to use the object oriented, the ECS more than the ECS is probably necessary to use. But what we're going to do is we're going to say commands.spawn. And we're going to say it needs to have a cell ID of vec2 new with x and y, and then a height that is going to be, I guess, just height, and then we'll generate that beforehand. So we can say let height equal I'm just thinking in my head like what I want it to do. So I want to say something like maybe have a humidity offset, and this is going to just be an F32. Same with a height offset, so it's going to be an F32. Rainfall. You add two variables and it gets difficult to visualize. Yeah, fuck it. No, wait, it's not. It's height humidity, height. Then we want I've forgotten it. It was temperature. We say temperature. Offset. The way the offsets are going to work is that the way that the offset works is if you feed in the same number to the simplex noise, you get the same result out. And rather than having a temperature, humidity, and height seed to feed into the simplex noise, instead we can admittedly, having them all as different noise functions would actually be even funnier, because that would mean that you could have like temperature doesn't vary as much as humidity can quite vary a lot, and height might be even more rough. So, you know what? We'll do that. Actually, that seems like much more fun. Just as like a generation thing, because it also means that I can do... like, how do I explain it? Like more flexibility in the map, because again, this is less about the simulator and more about showing people how to do certain things. So we're gonna have height, which means we also want humidity and temperature to be their own. And then here we get temperature. Like so, and they will all have their own things, and we're gonna have to. It's not called noise anymore. So we're gonna go. Let me call each of these. Oh well, no, that goes on the other side. And backslash equals FBM new with seed, and then we should be able to change each of them individually. That'll make more sense later. Then we're going to say you now get humidity, temperature, and height, and then we leave that alone because we're not doing that at the moment. So the more having the same seed means they're all going to get the same value, which is let. Oh wait, yeah, there was. Let height equal self dot. Why have I said let height equal that? No, it's self dot id to entity dot push. Push, and okay. So I'm gonna say height is self dot. Why can I not? Height equals self dot. Wait, no, it's not self, it's descriptor, isn't it? Equals descriptor dot height dot sample. No dot noise dot something. Dot get. Okay, and then we need to pass in. Was it two? Is it two F32? Oh god, of course it's not gonna work. Get takes in what though? Okay, interesting. I think it's get. It's just telling me that I can't use get because get would be x and then y, and I think I still need to multiply them by a stupid little no method get found on script. Okay, but then do we have to say, like, use noise function? And then we get, right. And then constant t and dimension noise and get returns an F32 and F64. Okay, so they need to be F32s as well. Okay. So that means that does work, but we just need to, we're going to put this up here because we're going to probably need the noise functions in more than just that place. So it's a noise function. Okay. And then we come back down here and we say you get that number as F32 and that number as F32. And then we hope that it doesn't have the same issue as Perlin noise, where if you put in an integer number every time, it always gives you an error. So, no, does it? Do they need to be F64s? This is, I think, the problem with noise. I think noise is all high precision, which makes things difficult. As F32. Okay, so we get height, and then we get really it should be better to correct it here, maybe as F32 rather than loading that out. And then as F32. It would have been nice to have done this first as F32. Now they're all going to be the same value because we've literally given them all exactly the same value. Because they've all got the same seed and they're all got the same thing. But this is going to be humidity. Right, and then this one is temperature. Right, okay. And then this one is sampling humidity, and this one is sampling temperature. Like so, and we sample them all, then we pass them all in here, and we say humidity, not handle, humidity is humidity, and temperature is temperature. And that doesn't say push. Alright. So we need to go inside the pink one.id. Alright. So that should let us generate or spawn the whole map, which is going to be something that we do. So we initialize this, we initialize that, and then we say add system on enter gen game state. I have to bring that in down a game. So use super in game state. Yeah, there we go. Then we say game state gen world gen, and then we say here, and we say FN gen world. We call gen world. We got that called gen world, and then we come down here and we say gen world is going to take in commands, descriptor, is a res map descriptor, and then map descriptor. I'm wondering if height should factor into biomes. Don't mind me, I'm just running up ideas here in my head. And then not like verbalizing them so nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about. So then down here we also need to get map. There's going to be a res mute, and this is going to be a world map. Alright, then we say F, and then we say map dot spawn. And then we pass in a reference to the descriptor and a mutable reference to the command, and then we say I didn't borrow map mutably. Okay. Why are you saying I can't borrow you? I struck with a similar name. Map descriptor. I don't know how I managed to remove that last letter, but anyway. Gen world's called, isn't it? Yeah, gen world. Okay, and then plugin's not called. So we go main and we say there, then we say world plugin. like so. Expected one argument found to right, because it's that. All right, and then we run it to make sure it's not going to crash, because it's not going to look like anything because we're not doing anything. So next, so we're going to map descriptor. I think next we want to go down here and we want to say enum biome. Right. So biome is going to be so like we'll start with like stone, grass, forest, stone, grass, forest, sand. Like obviously sand's not a biome, but like calling them things because I don't want to come up with what the biome is so much going to be. But these are going to represent the actual like effects. So we click play and then we go, oh boy, is that going to be slow. We'll see if it crashes or whether it actually like generates. It seems like it's, yeah, so it generated. It just took fucking forever. Now that could be because we're in a debug build, but it really probably shouldn't do it in one go because that's a lot of entities at spawned. Also, we need to go back to main and we need to include our well, I guess that's what the point of this is. Go here we go, here we go, here we go. App. Let's say app plugin. We're just gonna add the Bevy editor, please. Plugin. Yeah. And we're gonna call that a like another debug insertion thing. So we go no, it's this that config debug insertion. Okay, so do that. That means that the editor's only loaded in debug builds, and you don't have to worry about your release builds having the editor, which is yeah, win-win. I think I should probably make all these public. I don't know. Work on that later. So we're gonna say down here, we're gonna say import biome. And we're gonna say get, and so we're going to pass in a temperature, which is F32, and a humidity, which too is an F32. And then we should probably also pass in the height, but I feel like the height's more going to be used to gate certain biomes off so that like you don't have mountain biomes spawning really low down. And it also means that you can have like mountain, like if it's really high, you can still put snow because the value of the snow is. So yeah, we're gonna do something fancy like that just to give us slightly more flexibility because we've already got that value, like we're already generating the height value. So we should also really be doing that in an asynchronous task or something. Who knows? We definitely shouldn't be doing it in one go. It's a lot of noise sampling. Which means that it should really be done in chunks and broken down. Anyway, temperature. So first thing we're going to say is this returns a biome. Biome. Right. And then we're going to go if the humidity is high, I guess. I kind of want them to be tweakable so I can do them at runtime, but then again, tweaking this kind of stuff is really painful. And I'd have to put rules, and it makes it really slow. So instead, we're going to be like, if temperature is greater than instead, what we're going to do, well, I just running through things in my head. So we're going to go strum. We're going to say also strum macros. That's where it's going. I don't know why everything's not working. Why are these not getting tick marks? Anyway, main world UI world. So we're gonna give you a strum macros enum iter. Alright, and we're gonna say let mute all equals biome iter collect into a vector of that type. Okay, and then we go for can we say like all dot drain? No, it's all like filter. Okay. I'm running way too much through my head right now for doing a live stream because I'm literally not saying anything as I try and work out what I'm doing. So for and then we're gonna say like let mute can be is gonna equal a vec new like so. Then we say for all. Okay, maybe we should just go full. Get rid of all. I still think all's the right way to do it, but for now it's just not clicking on how I would do it. So we're gonna say for biome in biome. You know, like what I was thinking is collect them into the, like an array and then a vector and then select or like systematically remove them as they don't meet the condition. So we're gonna say if temperature is less than biome dot min temp. Yeah, I'm gonna need to do this as a so we're gonna copy it, but we're also gonna like comment that out because for now that's gonna be the hard coded one, but we're gonna put a little okay, dyn get, and the dyn get's gonna take in a list of biomes. I don't think that's also how you spell biome, but anyway, which is going to be a reference to an array of biomes. And then we're going to import. No, we're going to say struct biome rule. This might be a better way of doing it because it means that you can have duplicate biome. Anyway, so biome rule is going to have a biome, which is like biome. It's going to have a min temperature, which is F32, and a max temp in F32, a min humidity, which is 32, and a max. Humidity, also have 32. Min, max. Then we have a min. Height, 32, max. Height, also F32. Okay. And then we say for biome, except this should be S biomes. Alright, so for each biome, if temperature is less than biome min temperature, continue. If temperature is greater than biome max temperature, we also continue. Yep. And then we just go and do that and that, and then we say humidity, 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 and then we say minimum humidity, maximum humidity, minimum height, maximum height. And then we say if you make it that far, then you can be dot push biome dot biome. Alright, and then the other thing is we need a priority. I don't know what you mean by. Could this be an LRS reference? I don't understand. So I guess the answer is no, because I don't know what you mean. But anyway, back into this. We're gonna say U size U8 priority. And then we need to derive. I'm gonna derive reflect. Resource reflect. Drive reflect on you. Oh, okay. No, I was literally like thinking the other day about back when I was a kid in Hunger Games. I've seen lots of Excel game engines, so I don't think I spend very much time in certain areas of the internet and then spend way too much time in other areas of the internet. Yeah, basically this is going off the fact that back when I was a kid and like in school and that and Hunger Games was new, there was still these websites, they still exist now, that would simulate the Hunger Games where they more or less just roll random numbers and generate a story based on like, oh, these two tributes fight. But there was no actual simulation. It was literally just rolling numbers. Which meant that two tributes could fight, and then, you know, they didn't have to be anywhere near each other in the map sort of concept of like, or they didn't have to have the weapons they were fighting with, that kind of thing. So I wanted to generate like a simulator that would just do this, like the idea of like they have to actually have a spear in order to trigger fights with spears, or they have to be close together to fight melee, and if they've got a ranged weapon, they can fight from ranged, and therefore there's actually an increased chance of people with ranged weapons like winning an altercation, whereas in these simulators where they just roll dice, it's like, oh, this person shot that person with a bow, and it's like, well, where'd they get the bow from? Well, it was just the roll of the dice. So therefore there's no, I found a bow, therefore I'm much more likely to win. It was just, yeah, like there's a chance you will roll the bow storyline. So now I'm working on like a overly complicated simulator of the environment that's going to generate like a map so that, you know, the rivers can accurately spawn sort of thing, or not exactly accurately, but like, yeah, generate like a nice looking map that then the people will move around in. Yeah, I tend to describe things much more ambitiously than they actually are, because like a lot of this is just going to boil down to, I'm going to roll the events, but it's going to be a I guess like a filtered list of events. So like all they brawl or they fight or they, you know, that kind of thing requires that the two players be within 1 square of each other. And then like if you've got a spear, it might be 2 squares of each other, and that means that you will always roll the winning side of that, I guess, because obviously the person with the spear is almost always going to be the winning person. So it shouldn't be too complicated, and it's also going to be, you know, like no graphic kind of thing of like just generating like a visual map where you can see where the players are, but no like animations or anything. Yeah, well, that's what you got to do on YouTube. Like I was talking to someone the other day because they were like, "Oh, I found your YouTube channel and I think you got kind of cool skills." I'm like, yeah, the biggest issue with that is you only see what people put on YouTube. Like everyone on YouTube is really talented, because if we didn't make interesting, ambitious videos, we wouldn't get any views, and therefore you run into that. It makes you feel like everyone on YouTube is better than you because they're putting out the successes. Some people put out the failures, but even the failures are like entertaining failures, because nobody's going to put out a video that's really boring, or at least it won't get viewed by many people. So we're going to go can_be.sort, and then can_be.first.or else. Is it or else? No, it's unwrap or, and then biome. We need water, don't we? Water. Now, the biggest risk with this is that the biome water will be the most common biome, and you don't really want that. Yeah, God, I hate Python so much. I don't even know why. I can't stand the fact that Python just coerces types, and I've explained it, I think maybe on stream, but like just in general to people, where I'm like, the issue with Python is that Python will go, I can fix this, I can fix this, I can fix this. Oh no, I can't, and throw an error miles away from where actually something broke. Yeah, map type would let you. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I wanted to do it fast because I don't know if you hear when I compiled it before, and just generating like and spawning in the. I mean, it is like 10,000 entities. Exactly. Please do this thing. It goes, I've got you, and then you don't know where it decided it didn't have you, and just threw its hands up in the air and left you to deal with it. Yeah, but when I was spawning all the world, like spawning all of these cells, it took probably like 2 minutes just to spawn them all in, because it's sampling so much random noise, which is not the best way of doing this, but you know, we'll get around it. First dot clone. No, not clone. There. Okay. So first up, we need to implement order. Wait. Yeah. My only counterpoint to that is speed isn't everything, because also only 71 times. I thought it was closer to 200 times slower than C. But my thing with that is Python is so much faster to write that you probably make up most of those speed differences in the fact that you wrote your Python code 2 weeks ago and it's finished computing. Like, it took 2 weeks to compute and you're still trying to get the C code to you know, but that's also like a skill level of the programmer. Oh yeah, 75 times the electricity is also a good point. Well, like, yeah, sometimes I do feel that, like, just the fact that Python will all, like, you know, you'll start at computing much earlier means that it doesn't matter that it takes longer. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I find that your Python code will finish running before Rust finishes compiling is the joke that I'm going to make there. But like, the biggest issue with Rust at the moment is that the crates and libraries are not as like structured and finished. Like, the ecosystem is still so small that, yeah, if you can write Rust code from the beginning, you will have an amazing time. But if you're like, hey, I pull in a library that lets me write this, there's a good chance you'll hit a part of the library where someone was like, yes, we will add this, and then 2 years later you're still waiting for them to add it. Like, I love Belly, but it's kind of a great example. They made an amazing crate, and then they kind of just went like, yeah, I don't want to work on this anymore. So now it's like I have to keep bodging it together, and I'm like, I don't know how half this stuff works, so I can't fix it, and I can't expand it, so I just make it compile. So I guess yeah. Kind of means we need to do just remember, I'm copying the biome but not the priority, which means that, like, you kind of lose that when you order it. No, it's not gonna work either. I don't want to copy the whole rule though. Yeah, it's good chat. I need to have more, like, people just, like, join my chat, because it's interesting to talk to people more than it is to write code that is kind of boring when there's nothing on the screen. But yeah, you'll definitely start to learn that, like, there's a lot of things in Rust, especially like when you get even smaller into Bevy. Though admittedly with Bevy, things seem to actually be more fleshed out than the most of the ecosystem. Like, every time I try to write like web-based stuff with Rust, I tend to find that problem of, like, I can't work out how to do it because there's no tutorials or anything explaining it. Whereas Bevy, like, you need to understand a lot less just to get something functional. But maybe that's just a me thing. What was I doing? Because we've given each biome a priority. Yeah, okay. I think we should get rid of get, actually, because I like that suggestion of using like, allowing you to specify this map type, and that map type gives you all the biome rules. So, sadly, we're gonna have to do something like this. Biome of priority and biome, and which means we have to sort and then sort, like, by, which means there's no point adding ordering to biomes, because ordering biomes isn't gonna matter. Sort by yeah, the biggest issue I've had with ChatGPT is that ChatGPT has a tendency to get confused about what it knows. Like, it kind of is good at the current Bevy version, like whatever Bevy version it's trained on, but it does just have a tendency to sometimes spit out shit from like really old Bevy versions, or just spit out what sounds like the right thing but is actually just nonsense, because I understand how Bevy works enough to know, which is the big scary thing about ChatGPT, is everyone assumes that it's correct, and it's only if you actually know the topic it's talking about. Someone said that it was like Wikipedia once, is that like the biggest issue with Wikipedia is it sounds plausible until you know what you're talking about, and then you realize that Wikipedia doesn't know shit. And that's ChatGPT, is that it'll spit out something that may even compile, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah, it's not necessarily uncertain information. Like, it's funny because every time I challenge you about it not knowing what it's about, I just say like, no, that's wrong. And it goes, oh, sorry. And this spits out, like, it never thinks it's right. It always thinks it's wrong, but it may just spit out the same answer again and not correct it. But funnily enough, I don't think I've ever had ChatGPT be like, no, this is the right answer. Instead, it just goes, oh, yes, that is definitely wrong. And then just spits out, like, confidently spits out the wrong answer again, like the exact same answer. Yeah, he's very polite. But like my thing that I think the biggest issue with ChatGPT, yeah, I got distracted by someone else writing a message. The biggest issue I found with ChatGPT is nobody on the internet admits that they're wrong or that they don't know. Like, it's something that I'm noticing more and more on the world is these self-selection things. So the idea being that like I said with YouTube, like if you don't make a good video, you don't post it, or like if you don't have a cool idea, you don't make it the video. Is that ChatGPT runs into that issue, is if you don't know what you're talking about, like if you're not confidently wrong, you don't reply, which means that ChatGPT has thousands of examples of people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but confidently tell you that they do. And ChatGPT has millions of examples of people that do know what they're talking about, confidently telling you that they do. What they don't have is people going, I confidently do not have any idea. Like, nobody is going to reply to your comment saying, I am confident that this is the wrong answer. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you reply with, this is definitely not the right answer? Which, to me, is the hilarious thing of, like, chatbots, or like ChatGPT could get better if the companies that owned it literally went and paid people to pretend to be ChatGPT and then trained on that data. That could actually work better than what they're doing at the moment of scraping the fucking bowels of the internet to try and do it. Because you're running into the issue of nobody on the internet talks in a particular way of like, hey, I don't know. Real conversations, you ask someone a question and they say, hey, I don't know. The internet, you don't reply unless you know. Like, so of course ChatGPT learned to fucking be like, I know, believe me. Even though, you know, it doesn't. Like 99% of the time, it does not know. It's not like I can talk. I'm very like confidently wrong all the time, but like it's just kind of funny. Well, it's not even confidently lying, because like that implies that you knew what you said was wrong. Like, I'm talking about like there are people. Like, I have arguments with my brother all the time where we end up sometimes flipping the side of the argument that we're on without realizing it, because we've sort of like, we were both arguing the same point but from different perspectives, and we keep taking that sort of sidestep to try and like outmaneuver the person in the argument to the point that you actually flip the argument around and you're on their side, like where they started, because you've changed your own point of view, but you don't realize that that's what you've done, because to you, like, oh no, what I said at first was definitely correct, and you've in your head built this path of how what you said is this thing that you're saying now. Like, they are connected by the steps that you took. You just don't realize that the steps that you took you to where they were. Like, it was completely inverted. And it's that thing of ChatGPT. Like, people will confidently I saw a great YouTube short of it explaining it. There was a like a I guess a fake TikTok of like a meteor crash in the person's backyard, and then, you know, people were going in the comments, oh, this is so fake. And then someone said about like, oh, if it was traveling at the speed of light, it would have destroyed the planet. And someone else said, but it wasn't traveling at the speed of light. And then they went on a big rant about the speed of light and how it takes 8 minutes to get from the sun, and it takes rockets 9 minutes to get to space, and so they must be traveling at the speed of light because apparently the sun and space are the same distance apart. But the point was, the person commenting on the video was going like, this person is so confidently wrong, but they are correct in the fact that the video is fake. But they are completely off base in why the video is fake. But they are, in fact, the person who is correct in the argument, the video is fake. And it's that kind of thing. Like, the ChatGPT doesn't realize that people don't know what they're talking about. And it doesn't, I guess, because it's not conscious, so it doesn't understand the concept that people may not know what they're talking about. And that's the thing that has run into the worst, is that it just doesn't actually, it's not as smart as people think it is, which is even scarier when you consider the fact that they keep making it dumber by like, I think they're trying to make it safer, so they keep like basically lobotomizing it, which makes it dumber. There was an interesting paper that I saw that someone was talking about the unicorn test, which was you ask ChatGPT or like any large language model to draw you a unicorn using yeah, well, it's already become that, and that's the scary part, is it's not authentic. Like, people already think everyone already thinks it's correct, and it's not. Like, Ludwig just did a video talking about how he needed to start the video saying, I did not hit and run a child in 2013, because it was reading his chat, and his chat realized that they could say that, and it would manipulate it into summarizing, what are they talking about in this video? Oh, how Ludwig did a hit and run. It's going like, people will believe it because they're reading the chat summary. They don't realize that chat knows that they're manipulating the summary. AI doesn't. Yeah, so they were doing a unicorn test in this thing, and it's basically you ask ChatGPT but to draw you a vector representation, or like MATLAB or whatever they were fucking using, to draw you a unicorn. And they're saying that the safer you made the model by training it and fine-tuning it, the worse it got at drawing a unicorn, and the less intelligent the model seemed to get. So it definitely seems to be that these models are really intelligent if you just don't touch them. But as soon as you try to put any sort of authority, like authorial intent, I think is the word, on them, they just get stupid. And it's really funny because it's that whole, like, if you ask ChatGPT 3 to draw you a dog, I've got a, if you go to my community tab, I've done this. I asked it to draw me a dog, and it drew me an orange square. And then I asked ChatGPT 4.0 to do it, and it actually drew me like a stupid dog. Or like a simplistic dog, but I could actually draw something that I was like, that is a dog. Yeah, one test so far. Yeah, that's the fun thing. I saw someone like say it's become that trend of like, people hated AI so much that it's flipped around to people now talking about how shit AI is. And so I keep seeing lots of videos of people talking about, is someone saying like, the AI saves you like maybe half an hour of writing code and then gives you 4 hours of debugging to try and work out where the fucking AI fucked up. I'm definitely guilty of this. I've asked ChatGPT a few times just because I know the code. I'm just too lazy to go find it and rewrite it, of like generating hexagon grids and the code you need to place the hexagons so that they all tessellate across the grid and like the XY coordinates. So I asked ChatGPT to generate that, and it works. And the code that it spits out works. Like, just straight up, until you go to do something and you realize that halfway through, ChatGPT just sort of like flipped two variables. And I had no fucking idea why. As soon as I tried to do something else with that piece of code, it didn't work. But while I was doing like the bit that ChatGPT gave me, it worked. It was because like it had inverted the Q and the R directions. So it's like on a tessellating map, it was fine. But it means that the map was actually upside down, and I didn't notice, because how are you going to notice an infinitely tessellating grid that's upside down? It didn't flip any of the images, it just flipped the order that the cells moved, which meant that when I was trying to convert them from their coordinates back to their XY, it was in the wrong spot, because like, and that's fine if they're all in the wrong spot, but as soon as you try to do something else that puts them in, like you move them to the left, they were actually moving to the right because it was upside down. Yeah, well, that's, I tend to ask it to write like example code, because ChatGPT knows a lot more of the shortcuts in Rust, so it'll actually spit out like things like I used it up here. There, no, here, like unwrap or and there's like if you just go like dot or else or okay or else, like all these things, ChatGPT uses them, whereas otherwise you have to go and read and work out what they actually are used for. With ChatGPT, like here. Yeah, I think the reason there's less Rust discussion is because Rust, you can easily just copy paste what ChatGPT spits out, put it in the compiler, and it'll tell you where it's wrong. Like the compiler will check. Whereas Python, I feel like a lot more people will run the code, it'll run, and it'll do something erroneous. Whereas Rust, 90% of the time, if ChatGPT is wrong, it just won't compile. And that also means that a lot of Rust is more structured the same way. Like most Rust code you'll read will be written as idiomatic Rust, and most people will be like, this is my style of writing Rust, and it's the same as everyone else's. Python, I feel like, has a lot more Wild West style of like, this is how I write Python, and everyone goes, oh god, why? Like the double equals and the triple equals, and it's like, yeah. But it means that ChatGPT sort of like learnt Python as a bunch of people that don't really know Python, whereas Rust, it's like people writing Rust are probably writing like most people writing Rust like are writing the same Rust because we all learnt from the same source. The other thing is Rust is a much younger language, which means that when the developers of Rust have come out and said, hey, we've made Rust, it's like everyone went, oh cool, we're going to copy your style. Whereas Python, it's had a lot more time to be like, this is one way of writing Python, this is another way of writing Python. So ChatGPT is more likely to spit out Rust code that's readable to a Rust author. And also Rust being slightly more high level, or like, I guess low level technically. The people that are going to ask ChatGPT for help are probably not writing Rust code as much as they are writing Python code. That's another reason that you're probably seeing more of one than the other. But it is reasonable at writing Rust code, is my point I'm getting at. Yeah, it's a baby first language. It's also that it's not well done, but yeah, also more likely that someone's posted something to GitHub that fucking just doesn't work and nobody's fixed it. You know, like a lot more coding examples of broken code, and ChatGPT doesn't know that you're exampling broken code. It just sees code. My favorite one I've seen recently is they're talking about how ChatGPT will never be able to tell you how many R's are on strawberry because it doesn't see the word strawberry. It doesn't see individual letters. It sees tokens. And so it can't count. It just guesses. And unless it's actually seen somewhere in its training data that strawberry has 3 R's, it will never be able to work that out because to it, it's not strawberry like each individual letter. It's strawberry as one word, or it's straw and berry as two tokens, not a sequence of letters that it can work out. It can't do math. It's not abstractly looking at the words. It literally is thinking in the words. It's kind of like if you ask someone to describe the color in their mind. It's like they can't. They can give you analogies to the real world, but they can't actually tell you. And as human beings, we'll never be able to really experience that because unless we somehow crack neuroscience to the level of like actually being able to show you what's in your mind, you wouldn't be able to look at it and be like, that's not what I actually saw. Yeah, it is very black box X. Look up 3 Blue 1 Brown. He's doing a series, I think, where he's talking about ChatGPT 3 and like how it can store facts, was his most recent video that he did. And it talks about like how it transforms it and then it encodes through like a different type of network sort of thing, because like ChatGPT is like lots of layers of network stacked together. And it's saying like what it's kind of doing is encoding in this particular thing. If the word Michael and the word Jordan, like these two tokens, are together, one of the layers will cross-link them in such a way that Michael Jordan now becomes encoded into this as a singular word. And then when it goes through a different one, it goes, anywhere that Michael Jordan comes up, it encodes basketball as a different, encodes that in, so that like just this like such a bizarre level of like, it's so confusingly like, but makes sense. And that's the only thing I'm worried about, is it makes sense to me that that's how it's doing it, which tells me that that's almost certainly not how it's doing it, because why on earth would we have any intuition on how AI thinks? But it does kind of make sense that like they talk about, if you go to AI, because it's multi-dimensional vector domains and stuff like that, is the idea is if you take king and queen and work out the difference between king and queen, you get a vector, like a huge multi-dimensional, like 1024 dimension vector. And then what they're saying is if you go to any other gendered pronoun, like boy, and you attach this vector to it, you will end up somewhere approximating where girl ends up. And if you go to throne, you'll end up whatever the female equivalent, like they're saying, like it works remarkably well for a lot of things, which means that basically what you've done is you've got the vector for gender, and you've taken this, and like anything you stick it on will tell you the I don't know, it is just nonsense, but like that's AI for you. Yeah, so it's weird. I'm trying to think like how to break the analogy further down. But it's just sort of the idea of like, if you put every single word in a grid, like a 3-dimensional space, and then you went, and then you said up and down in the space is the gender of this word. So the more to the top the box the word is, the more male the word is, and the more to the bottom of the box, the more female the word is. The idea is that by taking any word and putting it in that, you can make it more feminine and just like see what other words it hits. And they're just basically saying that like in this huge dimensional domain, because of how math works, it doesn't care how many dimensions there are, you can, instead of having to visualize it in 3D, it's like, no, there's 1024 dimensions to this box. And one of these ways you can move through this box, it doesn't have to be along an axis, it can be in any direction down the dimension. You can move in that direction, and it'll make any word more feminine, not necessarily to its feminine equivalent. Like boy doesn't directly turn to girl with this vector, and king does to queen, but that's because that's how we generated the vector. But I'm trying to think of other gendered words. Niece and nephew aren't direct, like they're not, but that's more because the difference between a king and a queen is not quite, but close enough to the difference between a niece and a nephew and a brother and a sister and an aunt and an uncle. Like all these words are separated. yeah, mustache and bang. Like that's just really funny to me. Like, yeah, mustache and bangs is that kind of like, yeah. I think it's less bangs and more like like mustache and like hairstyle or something, like, you know, the different styles of mustache would all correspond to their feminine equivalent. Like you got the handle mustache is the same as the double pigtails, that kind of thing. But yeah, so it'd be like more like facial hair versus hair on your head. Like the masculine version will be the facial hair, and the feminine version would be the equivalent shape or maybe meaning, because like, so it's handlebar moustaches, you lazy cock. Yeah, beautiful, handsome. Yeah, those kinds of words. Which actually reminds me of another one, because you know, thank you, Crusader Kings, is you've got Herculean and Amazonian would be another distinction. But the idea is that these words aren't only different because of the gender, but the gender is sort of like the biggest thing we would assign the difference to. Hence, using this gender thing, it points pretty close to the word, but not exactly. And so because the word, like it's pointing at, what you could actually do is work out more like what humans, like to a level that we don't even understand. I love how I've written like a single line of code in like 20 minutes. But like what you can do is work out like encoding meanings that we don't even know exist. And because what you do is you go like, oh, well, the difference between like brother and sister, and you go, oh, well, we'll attach the difference between king and queen, and then like the difference between where that line ends up and where you actually wanted it to be, like the actual sister value, tells you how society views a king and a queen, the difference between a king and a queen versus the difference between a brother and a sister. And like if you could visualize this whole 127 dimension array, you can actually work out the difference. There's a computer process, and I never understood it because this is a very much black box to me, but I saw someone use it once and I like understand what they're doing on a conceptual level, but have no idea how the math works. But there's a thing called I think it's PCR, and it's like principal component representation or something like that. It's some kind of math term that basically means that the idea being that like you can feed in every single one of these 128 dimensions, and it doesn't have any fucking idea what the correlation is, but it goes, hey, these dimensions are all somewhat aligned. So there's like, it draws like basically a slider, and it says there is something. I need visual aids. Is it like line of descent or something? Graph. That's the wrong kind of descent. Is it line of best fit? Right. So, with your line of best fit, we're getting visual aids out because it's getting confusing. Right, you've got all these dots. Let's zoom in. And then what you're doing is you're basically saying that there's a fucking ad playing, that all these dots sort of have trend down this line. So what you can do... So what you do is you basically say that this line is now a slider, as in I can slide this from here to here, which now turns this two-dimensional array into a one-dimensional graph, like, right? One-dimensional. So you're saying like it's an n-dimensional. So this is two-dimensional, but now I've condensed it into one dimension. And this apparently continues into any dimension. So you could have a 128-dimensional array, turn it into a one-dimensional line. And you say that this line is sort of like the best fit line that fits all these dimensions, and you can give it like a strength, like how well it fits. And then what you do is now you've got like a weight between every single. So as you move this like one dot, like if I move from like here to here, it tells me how much I should move all these other dots, like the corresponding amount that I need to move in the other two dimensions. So, you know, for example, this becomes like a vertical line now, and it's actually like horizontal. So as I move from 4 to 3, it tells me that I should go from here to here. Like it tells me how much X to move. But if it was a three-dimensional thing, I can still only move in the Y direction, but it tells me both the X and the Z to move. And then there's no reason to link it to the Y dimension. In theory, I could make it run 45 degrees, and then it just tells me what the X and the Y to be. Right. The idea is that you can do this, and then what you do is you slide this dimension, and you see what changes in the image, and then you name it. Actually, I've got perfect example because ArtBreeder uses it. That's assuming ArtBreeder still exists, because I feel like some of these AI companies are going to go like disappear very quickly because it's apparently very expensive to run these models. Create, compose, pose. Wow, I haven't used ArtBreeder in a very long time, and it is significantly improved. I want to splice out. I want to do like the old thing. It's not the mixer. It's got to be the splicer. I'm going to just pop this over here, and I'm going to log in, and I'm going to hope like hell that it doesn't pop up on the other screen when I'm logging in, because I'm going to log into my main account, and I'm going to hope like hell it doesn't put my name on the screen, because doxing myself would be really funny at this point. I don't see it having my name anywhere, so we'll bring that back. So apparently someone copied one of my images, which is funny. No. Anyway, we just go in here, and then we go remix and splicer. All right. So as you can see here, they have a gender slider, which apparently just there you go. So the values are way too extreme, but the idea is that they didn't program a gender slider. What they did is they did that analysis I was talking about. I've also lost my chat, so just give me a second to work out where the fuck that went. Where the fuck did I do my chat? There we go. Yeah, so we don't burn the world down from the fucking hype. Well, it's not, no, so what they're saying is like, as you go, because it's saying, as I move more and more this way, it's becoming more and more feminine. as I move more and more this way, it's becoming more and more masculine, obviously. But what it's saying is like if you go all the way to the extreme, it's going like you're now beyond man. Like this is the manliest man. But it's also likely that this value probably shouldn't be allowed to slide this far, because they also, from the person I was watching who was doing a facial generation thing, they discovered that the most important slider almost always is color. Like that's it, background color. It's the biggest impact on any image. Yeah, so the idea is that like they didn't put the gender like that. That's the big point I'm trying to make, is that they didn't make a gender slider and they didn't teach the AI gender. They instead found a slider that when they moved it appears to change the gender of the model. Like it appears to change the gender. So they've labeled that slider gender. And it's to go back to our what happened to our other fucking window? One of these windows. Yeah, it's this one. My line. That one. Anyway, our line. So we go back to our line. And we go back down to it. Chaos. So what we're saying is I don't know what this line is, but when I move this line, it seems to... When I move this line, it does seem to correspond in relation to the gender. And then that's kind of what you do. Because and then what's even more fun is because it's not an actual encoded thing, like it's not something that the model actually learnt is gender, is people could do what they call, I don't know what this is, yeah, genes. So there's what is called genes. And what genes are is what people went through and did. And 99% of the genes are just people fucking around because it's really hard to do this. This is like on the level of like, if you could do this efficiently, you would have a multi-million-dollar company on your hands. But the idea is that if you went through and you went, oh, if I increase the you shiny, if I increase the gender a little bit and decrease the age a little bit, they actually sort of cancel out a little bit, and you actually end up moving slightly in a different direction. And so you can work out how to make someone cartoon animation by being like, oh, if I move this up and this down, then so half of them cancel out because they like, you know, we need to go back to our little graph. So let's say this is the blue line and this is the green line. And then if there was a third dimension that we can't see, if I move a little bit along the blue line and a little bit along the green line in such a way that they cancel out and we end up back here, but the net result's actually moving into the Z direction that we can't see, you can create a new slider. And that's what the genes were, is that they were new sliders that were like combinations of other sliders that people had worked out because they weren't necessarily intuited by the auto generation. And it meant that you could do weird things. Like some of the genes were really cool, but obviously they've been replaced by like fucking stupid shit. But one was like a cartoonifying gene. Kind of. It's more like I need to open this up in GIMP. No, I'm trying to think how to visualize. I'm saying like this slider is affecting this, but it's not actually changing that. Like all these dots are clearly not on this line, but we treat them like they are. And so that means that if I moved a little bit this way, it could move the dots actually like a different amount. And so what you're trying to do, I guess, is move this dot so that it stays on that line, like X-wise, like the X doesn't change, but the Y changes by moving like two different sliders. And then you can move the X without touching the Y, even though we've decided this is the gender line. So now you're moving off of the gender line, because the gender line has to move in this 45 to be the gender line. So instead, you're somehow like increasing the masculine traits or something like some concept. Because what we're saying is that moving along this line. So like let's say like this is amount of makeup worn and this is amount of facial hair. So as you wear less makeup, you have more facial hair. Like that's how the AI is perceiving gender, is that like, because again, I'm trying to explain this in a sense that makes sense to humans, but these are AI, they don't think like us. So we're saying like that the absolute real value, like the actual value that we are detecting, not the scientific like analysis value, is that Y is the amount of facial hair and X is the amount of makeup. And what we've concluded is that gender is this line that runs down here. So like the amount of makeup and the amount of facial hair is actually not connected. Like it's sort of just an arbitrary spread, but we've concluded there's a trend that as you move along this line, they're linked in some way. And the idea is that in theory, I could grab this dot and just move it right down here and be like, hey, what does it look like when someone has no facial hair and no makeup? Or you could go to the extreme and go like, what does it look like when someone puts makeup on facial hair, which actually is something you can do in this thing if I can ever get back to the original. It's like hair and eyes. No. There was something like you could... This is the scary race thing where someone had to label these sliders, which means that someone looked at these pictures and went, yep, that's definitely changing how white the person is. Which is a bit scary because... Right, so... Kind of, but also kind of not, because it's like, yeah, again, because we're generalizing back to that human concept. Like, I'm trying to think how to, like, because Artbreeder would be great if it was still the fucking old UI and I know how to navigate it. But there used to be like a bunch of sliders that you could change. Like you could change your facial hair slider and you could change the makeup slider. And it looked really dumb because if you ever went high makeup, high facial hair, the AI had no idea what the fuck it was doing. But it could still generate a valid image. It was usually generated something like a clown. Because to the AI, it's not actually facial hair and makeup that it's generating. It's some other aspects. Because that is less. So, what I'm trying to think of how to explain is, because you can't see my hands, which means that like unless I put it in GIMP, it's really. So with our axis of dots, what the AI is doing is turning this red line so that it points up. But I'm saying like, we're assuming that this Y and X are actually real things that it can actually perceive. Yeah, it is something we've already got very lost in, considering this stream we're supposed to be making map generator. But anyway, yeah, so the idea is we're assuming in reality that these X and Y are real things. And then when we've been measuring it, we've actually detected this red line. But the red line's as real as the other two lines are as well, because in reality, how do you measure how much facial hair someone has and how much makeup they're wearing? They're not real concrete things. Like, it's kind of like the idea of if you had like a cat axis. It's like, well, how do you determine where cats fall on this axis? Do all cats just get a 1 on the cat axis and then all not cats get a 0? Because then what you're doing is you're passing an image, like you said, like the pastry axis, and it determines where is the slice of bread on the pastry axis. It's that kind of thing of like, we don't know where the slice of bread is because the pastry axis isn't a real thing. It's not a quantitative piece of data. Whereas I'm saying in this example, X and Y are like solid. These actually are real things that exist. But to the AI, pastry doesn't exist. So pastry is this slider. And what you're really doing is you're going like how long it's been in the oven versus how much flour is in it. And then it's discovered there's a link, and that we call pastry. So yeah, it's a weird conceptual thing that the AI is seeing things that don't exist in the same way that you can look at a tree and say, hey, that tree looks like a dog. So can an AI. But the AI doesn't actually know what a dog is. The AI has no concept of a real dog versus a tree that looks like a dog. To the AI, everything has a dogginess. What a great word. And the AI is just sort of trying to work out how doggy something is, and if the dogginess is above a certain value, then it's a dog. But only if it's not also very catty. Otherwise, it might be a fox. Yeah, that's a large language model. The large language model confidently asserts it is in fact a dog. But here's the thing. That's a problem with large language models because of the fact that we assume them to have an understanding of how English works. Because if I got you a discriminatory model, like a model that's entire job is to say that is a dog or that isn't a dog, do you know what it doesn't do? Confidently tell you it's a dog. Instead, it hesitantly says that could possibly be a dog. And we've assigned a threshold at which we say, okay, I'll believe you it's a dog. And usually it's like 98%. Because if we go to something like digit identification. We go to the hand digit identification now. I'm trying to think because there's like a weird thing. So in this, like they're just going like, yeah, it says it's 2, it says it's a 7, but it doesn't. The actual AI tends to give you a range where it's like, hey, I think there's like a 1% chance it's a 0, and there's a 1% chance it's a 1, and there's a 68% chance it's a 2, but there's also like a 30% chance it's a 3 because 3s and 2s look very similar. But I'm more sure it's a 2 than I am a 3, and so we go, okay, we'll call it a 2 then, which is where you end up with weird AI shit where sometimes it'll be like, this is a 3, and it looks nothing like a 3 at all. It's because it's like, well, it's because it really had no idea what it was. But it didn't confidently say this is a 3. Instead, it sort of hesitantly said this is a 3, and just because of how we've programmed it, it just assumes that it is actually, in fact, a 3. But yeah, it's only large language models because of how language works. Like the AI, again, like it's my hypothesis is the reason the ChatGPT is so confidently wrong is because everyone on the internet is so confidently wrong. Nobody hesitantly puts forward that they're 35% sure that their facts are correct. But it's just that we read language as fact, even if we know it's not true. We read it as a fact. If you're reading a book, even if you know it's fiction, you don't read the book with the uncertainty of the author written next to every word. But that's how ChatGPT generates them. It has an uncertainty. And because even if because again, like I watched the 3 Blue 1 Brown video, he talks about how they generate it, and basically we are so certain that these language models, like we've made them so certain about that. Sometimes we just pick a different word. Like he talks about what they do is they basically, you give them the whole context and they go, okay, I'm 98% sure this word's next. And then there's like a 1% the word after that. And then like it gets smaller. So every single word in the English language, or like technically it's tokens, but we'll say words because it's easy to understand. Every single word that it knows is ranked. And it says that like there's a certain percentage chance. And what we do is we go, based on that percentage chance, I will pick a word. As in, sometimes you may pick a word that had basically no chance of ever even being in that situation. And the AI just goes, well, I guess that was the right word, and then confidently guesses the next word. But it's because we've made them so confident that if we just picked the most confident word, it would always generate the same thing. Hence, when you go to generate something, like, I don't think ChatGPT lets you, but like some of the image generation ones, I think it's Huggy Face. When you do image generation, they let you put in a seed. Is it FluxDev? I think we go to advanced settings. It lets us put in a seed. And the reason it lets us put in a seed is because the seed seeds the random number generator. The AI does not use the seed in any way. The seed is purely used to pick the random numbers. Hence, otherwise you'd get the same result every time. If you gave it, ChatGPT obviously uses a seed because if you ask it the same question twice, it doesn't spit out word for word the same response, which means at some point something random is being injected because the AI didn't change its weights, which means the AI is giving exactly the same response. And that's kind of how this works, is that when you change the seed, it changes the output because it now will pick different words, and you only have to change one word and suddenly the AI is going to give a completely different outcome. But if you always gave the same outcome, it would always give the same result, which is, you know, if you ask ChatGPT hello, it's not going to always respond the same way because it uses some kind of randomness to determine that. I'm just going to type something in because I need something on screen. Thanks, Fox and Top Hat. We'll see what it comes up with. I mean, we've been talking about generative AI for if I just go back to somewhere, I can yeah. What's that looking like? An hour we've been talking about this. Because yeah, somewhere around 11:40, I started getting consistent chat rates, which was probably us talking about the Hunger Games stuff, and it's about 12:30 now. So you know, hey, look at that Fox and Top Hat. Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah, well, that's kind of how I feel like I was supposed to be programming a map generator, and and then you know, kind of got a bit sidetracked. You know, it is a cute fox. Can we say my issue is I don't think it understands what it means when I say a bionic eye. I've tried to get things to generate my my YouTube icon, because it's just one of those fun things of like, let's see how well the generative AI can actually do at generating a novel concept. You know, like a fox with a bionic eye, and it's like it tends to not, because it tends to not know what a bionic eye is, and instead like fucking morphs half the face of the fox into being like generic robot parts. It's funny. Hey, look, it actually did it. That's probably the first time I've ever actually typed that in and got a result. Like she's got a little suit on too. I actually got something that I was like, that's half decent. Usually they like half their face is morphed off and disappearing because it struggles with the concept of having like machine and flesh meat, and then it'll be like half his face will dissolve into sort of nothing. See, my because I probably fall on the wrong side when it comes to that, because like a lot of people get mad at the um I very much fall on the side of, I think AI should be allowed to be trained on copyrighted material, because I feel like the people that are claiming that the AI is stealing their material don't understand how AI learning works. Like they don't understand that it's not actually copying their image and then storing it somewhere. Like everyone was under the impression for a while there that it was somehow embedding their image into its network, and then that was actually like existed somewhere, like that there was a copy. Like when you redistribute the model, you're actually redistributing their copyrighted work, and it's like, well, that's not actually how it works at all. Like, it does not in any way do that. But I do understand people not wanting it taken for free, but I also am like, if you trained it on a bunch of Disney stuff, unless you only train it on Disney stuff, the odds of it spitting out a Disney character are really low unless you ask it to. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that they're in the wrong for having a problem with it, but that's more of a problem with generative AI, not that it was trained on your material. And also the bigger concept of, like you saying, like it'd be nice if it could use copyrighted material, is like the bigger issue is that it's still kind of vague. At least like I think in Australia, from what I remember, you are allowed to use other people's copyrighted, like original IP, as long as the medium that you're reproducing it in is actually the thing that adds value. As in, you can't mass print t-shirts with Disney characters on them because it's the Disney character that they're buying. But if you crochet a Disney character, you can sell that. Like, they can't stop you because they're not buying the character, they're buying the work. And that's, I think, how Australia's copyright laws work. But it becomes that thing. People were claiming that the AI was embedding it, but I'm going like, no, it's learning the concepts and ideas. But it becomes difficult because I agree, like the way we're training them is wrong. But I think once they're trained, they're fine. Like that's, I guess, where my distinction is the AI models shouldn't be pinching everyone else's stuff. The other issue is that they're trying to charge for something that they stole, or like, you know, it's not necessarily stole. Like the fact that they can browse the internet, like the fact that these AI could, in theory, learn this stuff without having to have stolen. Like, if you were downloading movies from Netflix and training your AI on them, like, that's not something that an AI could do. But if you're browsing Twitter and, like, as an actual artist, you could do the same thing. That's, to me, the so where I draw the line is, like, if you're doing something that an artist wouldn't be able to do. Like, maybe like just things that artists couldn't, though. Like, that's another thing that's interesting. It's like you said, a programmer, if you could imagine it, you can create it. Is that's my favorite thing with an AI, is I tend not to use AI to outright do things. Like, when people are like, oh, I can get it to write my assignment, I'm like, yeah, but if you read what it'll fucking spit out, if you have even the slightest understanding of what the fuck you're talking about, and you ask an AI to write something, it'll spit out some weird shit. But I get it to write fucking scripts for my videos, and then I go rewrite the entire script. Like, I don't just change a few words. I write the whole thing again using the structural outline that the AI came up with. Yeah, no, so I think it's not necessarily like underestimating human creativity. It's more like we're very locked in our ways. Like, you notice, like, every movie's a sequel now because we don't actually like change. But for some reason, anime blew up, and it's like anime blew up because Japan was separate enough to develop its own culture, its own style, and its own way of doing things without being influenced by the West. And then we see it and we love it, and it's novel and it's new. But what we don't like is something that's almost what we like, but not quite what we like. It's like, it's why sequels suck so much, is we may as well just go watch the original because the sequel is so close. But we also don't want the sequel to be so different that it's like, well, now it's only in name. But that's more of a different ethical thing of being like, are you trying to sell something by using the name of something else? But it's that thing of like, humans could create something really bizarre and interesting and new, but nobody would buy it, so they don't. Hence, AI isn't trying to sell you anything. People are trying to sell you what the AI makes, but the AI itself is not trying to sell you anything. So the AI is not going to generate something that's similar to what a human being would make. It can make... That's the whole thing with it. I've closed the fucking art breeder. That's the whole thing with art breeder. And like, when we slide the slider to extreme, it's beyond what humans could comprehend. But it's not actually beyond what humans could do. Like, I could fucking draw this. Generate with the fucking extreme female. See, that was part of the problem, is that the slider lets you go from 0 to 100. And that person had obviously already taken it quite far into the negatives, which meant that when he took it even further into negatives. Yeah, it's weirdly phrased, because that's quite literally what it is. It's picturing into an alien's imagination, because the AI is an alien, like, almost by definition, but not quite, because it's sort of like when you call them, when Americans call a Mexican an alien, because alien just means like not from here. But yeah, like it's like picturing into the mind of an animal. Like, we don't know what they can picture, because we don't even know what other human beings can picture. My favorite one is the concept of qualia, which is, if I'm remembering this correctly, because I did learn it from a YouTube video by a depressed turtle. But qualia is the concept of what's in our mind, and is completely... This portion is very quiet. So, qualia is like the concept red, not the color red, but the concept of red. As in, we can define red as being a specific wavelength of light, and we can say that is red, and everyone agrees that that is red. If I can slam up the red slider and see what it makes, and we go, if I point to this, this is red. Then we all agree this is red. But we don't actually know if we're seeing the same color. But, like, we're seeing the same color. We don't know if we're seeing the same qualia, which is the idea that as soon as it enters my eyes, my brain turns it into a signal, and we have no idea. Kind of, but that's more like sociological attachment to the color more than... I'm saying, like, if we swapped eyes, would the world look the same? Or would the world look inverted? Would the world just have all the colors shifted around the color circle? Would the world have completely different colors entirely, like completely arbitrary colors? Or here's an interesting concept. Maybe depending on people, like, and this is where you like your autism's coming. If you looked at the world through my eyes, would you see colors you'd never seen before? Not because you can't see them, but in the same way that colorblind people can't tell certain sets of colors, like blues and green, or reds and greens, might be very similar. Like, you know, they're let's go to like colorblind tests. We go for more visual examples. We're going to make them more visually appealing to watch the stream. I gotta try and be a better streamer, because like I keep not being. So the idea here is that the purple and the red are close enough that people with color blindness don't have enough dynamic range. They physically can't see the difference between the two colors because they're too similar. And that's why it's a lot of different reds and a lot of different purples. Otherwise, it'd be really obvious, because it would be like a bunch of dots of the same shade, a bunch of dots of a different shade. You can easily see that. But what it is it's a bunch of dots that are all slightly different shades of a different color, and then lots of dots of a slightly different shade of a similar but different color. So we can see that these are all reds and these are all purples, pinks, whatever. But a colorblind person might see them as all shades, because they don't see gray. Like some colorblinders do, but that's a specific type of color. They don't see it all the shades of gray. They'll see it all the shades of red. And they can't see that distinct sharp line where it goes from being red to being pink, because they can't distinguish. So if a colorblind person swapped eyes with someone, they would see this very distinct, like, holy shit, these colors that I thought were very similar colors are actually really far apart. And for all I know, if I swapped into someone else's body, everything would be like colorblind. All the colors would be really close together. Because what they would actually tell me is that their brain is really sensitive, or like inversely, not sensitive to the distinctions in color, as in the signal that their eye sends, the difference between red and green, you know, are only slight differences, but their brain distinguishes them exactly the same. They can tell these slight differences in signal strength apart, as well as I can tell huge spikes apart. But we wouldn't know unless we swapped brains, and that's what qualia is. Qualia is the conceptual idea within our conscious mind, as opposed to the physical impulses sent to our brain. This is... Yeah, well, we actually... Yeah, exactly. So you're right, because you just hit the exact point. Or they're not. And it is actually impossible to know. Theoretically, though, we are getting close. Because the like Neuralink and stuff that Elon Musk's working on, in theory, will tap into the brain, and maybe not in our lifetime, but in theory, we'll have enough of the brain mapped to be able to take to be able to like record thought patterns, basically, and save them and play them back later. So as in, like, you could remember what it was like to be at your wedding. But I suspect, just from my experience of the world and how my brain works and how I feel the world works, I don't think we'll ever have that sci-fi, you can transfer your thought patterns, like you could learn Kung Fu and then transfer it to someone else and they now know Kung Fu. Because I very much believe that our thought patterns are our own, and that like there may be a way of building a translation layer, but the only way to do that would be for me to learn Kung Fu and you to learn Kung Fu, and then we could look at the differences between our copies of this is my brain with Kung Fu and my brain without Kung Fu, and trying to build some kind of cross map that, I mean, AI would be really good at that kind of shit, but it means that you would never be able to just copy someone else's memory map. You would have to either invent yeah, I like that theory, like that memory loss is it's just an incompatibility. My only counter to that is that my memory is really good because I don't remember things, I remember thoughts. And my I can't visualize anything, but I have a constant monologue running, which means that when I remember something, I remember what I thought to myself when I first encountered said thing, like what I'm remembering. And I'm not sure why, but it kind of fits into your theory of my brain can pack memories much denser because instead of trying to remember everything about the experience, I like run a memory monologue of being like, this happened. But it does mean that a lot of my memories I've already been lost in the sense that I remember remembering the memory and I remember my thoughts about remembering the memory. So I can infer what the memory was of and therefore what happened because my memory, like, because I literally thought to myself, that dog was a funny color, which means I don't actually know what color the dog was, but I can picture what, like, and my brain has this sort of like, it can regenerate what the memory was based on the thoughts from the memory. Yeah, yeah, it's like the frame of reference. Yeah, like there's, but that's again because I feel like your memory works similar to mine because you're using a lot of analogies that I would use. But I've talked to people about how my memory works, and a lot of people have random access memory. Like I don't. I can't remember anything without that frame of reference. I can talk to someone and I can remember and recall facts. Yeah, so you can rotate a cube in your head, but that's more just like I'm completely like non-visual. Sometimes I can see shit like someone said once that it's impossible to visualize something without shape, texture, or feeling because they're secondary senses, but like without them you can't have primary senses. So it's like you can't visualize something without a shape because shape is part of visualizing it. Like, but it's like I always felt that I could. It was more like how do you have a textureless apple? And it's like, well, because it's like a pressure, like a sense that the apple exists. It didn't have a texture. It was just a sense that it existed. Yeah, but when you say like people who can't see things in their head exist, like, but can you like hear a voice, like talk to yourself in your head? Because that's like apparently like, sort of the trade-off. I'm assuming have both, but like a lot of people talk about the conscious, like the conscience, and it's like, oh, it's a little voice in your head that we. But I'm saying like no, like this is like I can have a fucking conversation with the voice inside my head, and in some ways it is me, but it isn't me, and in the weird sense of like I know exactly what it's going to say, which makes it not very good to have an argument with because you know its counterpoints before it says them, but they're not. But I also don't know what it's going to say, and it yeah, and who it is. As I say, like I can have the voice of other people, and that's what I mean. Like when I'm saying like I don't control what the voice says because the voice says what I think the other person would say, but I also can just make the voice say what I want it to say. But that's a different voice. No, that's what I mean. Is the difference is you're saying like low-level daydream. I'm saying like this is my thoughts, as in like when you say think something, the voice is the thought. Like it is the wisp of consciousness that is the concept. Hence, if I'm thinking what someone else will say, it's in a like a different voice, but like the same physical voice, but like a different. Like I know when I'm saying when the voice is saying what I want the voice to say, as opposed to when the voice is saying what I think would actually be said. And then there's those kinds of voices where it's more of a memory. Like I know you're referencing Futurama and I could hear the professor's voice saying it, but it's different to if I was to get the professor to say something that I think the professor would say versus getting the professor to say something that I want the professor to say. It's a weird concept thing of like, and apparently like not everyone can do it. Like not everyone hears a voice. Kind of like, you know, in my head, I say to myself, I need to get bread and milk when I go to the shops. Like it's a voice in my head literally says, I need to get bread and milk. It doesn't just say bread, milk or shop bread, milk. Like it's not an arrangement of ideas. It's like literally like as if like my subconscious was talking to me. It's like, hey, don't forget this. It's like a completely different voice. And interestingly enough, studies have started to show that it may actually just be a completely different thing. Yeah, it's weird. But like, yeah, there's been studies about like when they cut the joint in the brain and separate it into the left and the right half of the brain, that both function independently and both seem to present signs of consciousness. And what that kind of proves is that at the very least, there's two consciousnesses in your head right now. Like that, science has proven there are two people in your head right now, but they have like the best internet connection between each other to communicate and agree that they're actually one being. But they're two consciousness, because if you separate them so they can't talk, they will both act like they are the primary consciousness. And they're saying that the weirdest thing that confirms that they are actually have to be two consciousnesses even on normal people is that it doesn't freak out. They're saying like, if cutting the brain in half caused the second consciousness, as in like once you remove the dominant one, like a second one will form to fill the void, then you would expect the second one to panic. Like you would accept the second one to be a consciousness that just suddenly cannot comprehend that it exists. But it just acts normal. It just continues acting like a normal person would, like the left or right part of their brain. Can't speak, doesn't seem to bother it. Like it's not like your fucking right hand freaks out because the left side of the brain can't talk. Or whatever, because I can never remember which side is which, but one side can talk and the other side can't, and they control the opposite side of your body because they're fucking stupid. And what's even more bizarre is that apparently the way your eyes work is it controls the left eye and the right one's the right eye. It's instead it controls the left half of both eyes and it controls the right half of both eyes. Fucking weird. But the concept is that like when you separate the brain, you don't make a second consciousness because otherwise there would be signs that the second consciousness is new, but nothing changes. Just weird shit happens when the consciousness realize the other one is present. I don't remember actually. I think it was the logical side that was responsible for language. No, it was refined, not necessarily disproven. So yeah, exactly. It's a too convenient of a truth. It's an oversimplification. So from what I remember of the stuff that I've seen about it, is that one side of the brain controls emotions and like mood and things like that. Like, and then there's also one, like, and again, I don't know which side is which because I don't think there was a distinct like these are the things we call logical, these are the things we call creative, and they were evenly like and like nicely split. It was more like one side knows names and faces. The other side knows personalities. So it means that you go, I know you, but I have no idea how you're going to react to me saying that I know you, because it's two separate things. Like the one side goes, that face, I recognize it. The other side goes, that, you know, and then so you again, that qualia idea, they communicate between each other that there's the qualia, this same identical thought, and then one goes, hey, this is the thought because I recognize the face. The other one goes, oh, if it's that thought, then I know the personality traits because they're linked that way. So I know that it's left is logical and right is creative. In the simplification, I'm saying like in the studies, they one side can identify shapes, the other side can't. One side can identify faces, the other side can't. But I don't know if the side well, apparently epilepsy results in the two sides getting separated because they decided it was a good idea to chop them in half. But that's where these studies came from, is epilepsy. Instead of letting it spread between the brain, halves of the brain, they were like, hey, if we just cut this bit, then that side can fucking seize and the other side can be fine. So that's where the studies came from. But yeah, it was like there's a whole bunch of things like where they've like this part of the brain, like they were saying like one side can identify colors, the other side like, and I think the other side can identify shapes, and it was like one can name things, the other can identify things. So the idea was that like if you showed one half of the brain something, it would do something, but if you showed the other side of the brain, it would respond. Like, and that was the whole one side can talk, one side can't. As in one side you said, hey, pick up the Rubik's Cube. You told one side, like it was like one side can read and one side can't. So it was like, I don't remember how they did it, but they basically showed one side of the brain, like, and I remember a picture of a Rubik's Cube, and they picked up the Rubik's Cube that was in front of them. And then you asked the person, why do you have a Rubik's Cube in your hand? And they would tell you that they just always wanted to learn Rubik's Cube, so that's why they picked up the Rubik's Cube. They had no idea that the other half of their brain, this part that actually picked up the Rubik's Cube, had seen a picture of a Rubik's Cube and hence was the reason it picked up the Rubik's Cube. Oh yeah, no, other brains definitely have halves. I think the biggest thing that the person I was watching was talking about, like at the end, their thoughts and feelings on the why they made the video kind of thing. They're saying that there's a good chance that it's not just halves. It's more likely that most sections of the brain contain their own consciousness, and that we as a collective being are multiple consciousness, and that's how where intrusive thoughts come from and thoughts like that, is that it may be that certain consciousnesses like wrestle for dominance, and that like sometimes an intrusive thought is a separate consciousness, or like ideas or mood changes, like that kind of thing is all different consciousnesses. But the two halves, like it's definitely not just humans, because obviously other mammals have the two hemispheres of their brain that are only connected by the specific point in the center. But I think it's more like it's really hard to cut people's brains up ethically in such a way that certain parts can't communicate and see how that changes how they are as a person. Yeah, like, so the idea of that is I'm just remembering I was supposed to be programming in this live stream, and again we've just gone really off topic. When they like gave people lobotomies and they fucking chopped off your frontal lobe, they changed who you were as a person, and I can't remember how it worked so much, like because in movies and that they depicted. They depict the lobotomy as being like, oh, now you're brain dead. Like they've chopped off part of your brain and like you're brain dead. But I'm like, surely they weren't lobotomizing people and making them brain dead. And that's just a... yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the Pong. That video blew up way more than I was expecting. That thing got like 2,000 views in a week or something, which for my channel is pretty good. Usually it gets about like 1,000 views and then dies. But that video just kept gaining views. I think even now it's still gaining quite a few. It even made it into the fucking newsletter, which I was like, oh shit. Like, that's probably where most of the views came from, is the fact that it actually made it outside of me just posting it on Reddit. Yeah, back to the lobotomy thing, because I want to finish that thought. What was happening with lobotomies is they were separating the frontal lobe, which is like your logic and reasoning. And I think this meant the person could still function. They just weren't an emotional being. Like, they took away what made them human, but they didn't take away what made them functional. So it was that whole, like, you could lobotomize big chunks of people's brains and they were still functional. Like, some guy got I don't know if it was a drill or I think it was a piece of pipe that when he like blew a bit of dynamite went through his fucking head. And they're saying he just lost all empathy. Like, he lost the ability to care what people thought, but yet he still was a functional human being, even with a big fucking hole in his head and part of his brain missing. And that's the kind of thing that points to the idea, like, yeah, most mental illnesses are probably just a single part of the brain defective, like being defective, and it's the part of the brain that's supposed to modulate and regulate whatever thing we consider to be a disability now. All right, let's go back to programming. No, it's Discord. It's not programming. I actually think it's actually the opposite. I just immediately throw me in another fucking tangent. I think it's actually the opposite. Humans are significantly less resilient than other animals. Sure, we don't die from shock, but I think that's more that humans would die from shock if you didn't have another human being come in and calm them down. Like, people, in theory, die from shock all the time. We just call them different things because you could talk to the human being and you could fix the problem, like really high blood pressure. So an animal dies and we go, oh fuck, we think its heart exploded because it's shock. Human dies and you probably had a lot more to diagnose it. So I feel like shock is one of those it's a thing that can kill you, but it's more of a like cancer doesn't kill you, organ failure kills you level of things. But you'll actually find that humans are not as resilient mentally in the sense that like dogs and that, they'll walk through fucking ice cold water and they don't care. Whereas humans are like, no, that's cold, I can't walk through. Like, we get so stuck on our own I guess humanity of it. The concept of like we feel pain and therefore we must avoid pain at all costs. Whereas animals are like, I must get away from this pain immediately, or it's just pain that, you know, like don't touch that part of my body. Like dog, I had a dog when I was younger that had a like a, I don't know, it was cancer or just like an infection. Like it's had a big hole in its fucking side where it like rotted away, and we had to like treat it. And the dog did not seem to care that this hole was in its side. A human being would be in agony all the fucking time. The dog just did dog things. So it feels very much like humans' brains are too interwired that if we lose a big chunk of our brain, we can literally shut down on the thought that we are not who we used to be. That is enough to stop a human from being able to function. It's just the thought. Like, people go about their dog being depressed and needing antidepressants or being anxious and not. I don't think they are. Like, dogs don't get so depressed that they can't get up because their brains are more resilient than ours. And I think if you chopped a big chunk of a dog's brain out, it would still be able to function as an animal, whereas a human wouldn't. Like, there's a much less of a human's brain that you could remove before we wouldn't consider them to be even functional. But again, that's a lot more to do with society, whereas like if you chopped a big chunk of a dog's brain out, you can still find food, and human would still be able to do that too. But if you can't speak, then you don't really consider to be a human anymore, which sad but true is how society views people. Yeah, but it's also a weird thing of like, we talk about. I'm not sure how they're gonna kill. I think they're just maybe just generic HP. Give everything a hunger, thirst. If they starve, they starve. Maybe simulate on a bit of a curve that like the hungrier you are, the slower you lose hunger. But also like, I kind of want to give them stats as well, just for it to make it like a gamified. Like the higher your strength, the more well you'll use a sword, even if you don't have any training. And maybe give them like D&D style proficiency, so you can either use a sword proficiently, mastery, so I don't think injury like turns to heal it, because that's the big thing where like you lose in games where you keep in books and stuff, is that injuries don't heal quickly in real life. Like if I fucking put a 2-inch gash down my leg with a sword, I'm not going to go heal it. I'm going to stop it from bleeding, and it's going to affect me for the rest of, until months, possibly even. So I feel like there's not going to be any stop and heal. It may be treat bleeding, so you give them a blood level, and then like if they don't treat it in time, like if they're in combat for too long after getting cut, they bleed out. That kind of thing. So it's not going to be repairable damage. Like if they break an arm, they don't splint it and then it's healed by the end of the game. Like it's going to be very much Hunger Games style of like, yeah, make it not fatal. Yeah, the other thing is, with my proficiency and mastery is, I think you can become proficient in the arena, but I'm thinking you can't master something in the arena. Like if you have a bow mastery going in, you're really good with bows, but you can't find a bow in the arena and become a bow master. You can only get to proficient. Like it's sort of like there's only so much you can learn by doing. There's a hell of a lot more you can learn by being taught. Mm. You were clone to save. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Yeah, like something like that. I was also thinking maybe like ditch the Hunger Gamesy style of it and instead just make them randomly generated characters, or like again, because if you were right back at the beginning of the stream, but I know that was fucking like hours ago and not everyone was here. There's this game called Ultimate Fight and or Ultimate Arena, and that does the style of like you get to we'll do a quick round because apparently they literally said in this update that they originally made the game not rescalable because it was designed to be played on stream, and I went, who the fuck would stream this game? So we go to like quick match. Like a stray dog, and it's got a strength of 5, agility of 5, an endurance of 5, a skill of 5, and a luck of 5. But like it's just a stray dog and a picture of a stray dog. Its gender is male. Like but it does nothing. This is what I'm saying. This is what I want to get. I'm assuming strength, agility, like it's somewhere it probably uses them in the dice rolls. Like, yeah, but that's kind of like. But I feel like that's something. Yeah, the players can do. Like, if you wanted to make it the Hunger Games, but I'm sort of using the Hunger Games more as like a good thumbnail kind of thing, bring people in more than it is like a. Yeah, like more than like an actual recreation of the book sort of thing. But then the idea is that let me speed it up. They already hit landmines. It's pretty loud. But like, yeah, so the idea is that like in this one, at least the characters need to be near each other, but it still does things like, oh, they killed each other with a spear, and it's like, well, when did they get the spear? I don't know. They just had a spear. But if I remember correctly, even in this one, they have to go to water to get water, and they have to go. I think they have to find food to get food. Like they don't just gain food. Oh, it died. And they also have a sanity thing. This is Zuckerberg. Darwood wins. But it's a sanity thing. But I think the sanity thing just means that the AI does weird shit. Like not going up. Yeah, that's sort of the bare bones of what I want to make. But I want it to actually not be like just a map where they move around freely. Yeah, the irony, right? But yeah, so in that, I'm pretty sure there's no like tracking of an inventory or anything like you can give them gifts, but most of the time that doesn't do anything. And the same as I don't think their stats really do anything except maybe endurance beats strength or something like it. And when it does dice rolls, it does that. Like, but I'm not really sure because I'm pretty sure I've done it where you like put one level 10 everything in with a bunch of people that are level 1, and it's like it's still just an absolute shit show to who wins. Like there's no I can cheat it to get my character to win by giving them all this shit. So what do we decide? We're going to go with a struct map. Map type, maybe? I don't know. And then we're going to say map type is going to have biomes, which is going to be a vector of biome rules. I think that would make the most sense. And we need to draw a reflect on you. So that means you need to debug. And you've also got reflect. Biome doesn't implement debug. Alright, so we want to say just gotta put that back up there. And then we're gonna actually take this out. I'm gonna... do that, except it's gonna take in self. Oh no, just self. Just self. Hmm. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like making the champion would be like the kind of the whole point, rather than like that's what I don't like about these. Like as you saw, but it was again I sped the game up so much it was kind of gone. It has like the AI's pick to win, and I think the AI just picks whoever has the most kills or whatever. Like there's some kind of like algorithm they're using. But the issue is that it doesn't actually mean shit. Like the AI will change its mind all the time because there's no need, I guess. What? No, there's no way for the AI to actually make an intelligent guess. Hmm. My brain's gone to sleep now. I just need to return a color. No, we should probably go use Bevy color palette. Alright, I'm glad you enjoyed the chat. It was good talking to you. I had a lot of fun exploring ideas and whatnot. And hopefully have a good dinner and see you in future videos and whatnot. Now I gotta remember to keep talking so that I don't like bore everyone who's here because I've gone back to programming. Dark green dot into and fantasy. Okay. Okay. Fine. What we need to do is go here, go here, go here, go in, and then go. Oh, wrong key. And say color this azure like that. Alright. Well, I think this. Well, actually, what we should do instead is put map type inside of that descriptor. And then go map descriptor. And then we go reflect. And then we say reflect ignore. Okay, and then that should hopefully let us pictures illegal. Oh god, am I boring when when I'm programming? All right. I'm gonna send the invitation. If anyone wants to jump on the Discord and hop in a call, like I'm in the chat. I'll just bring it over so people can see. If you jump in the Discord, I'm in the lounge if you want to come actually chat. And then, you know, like, hopefully I don't get super side tangent again, but it'll mean that I have someone to talk to while I type instead of just being like staring at the screen in silence. So what I'm gonna do is gonna new. Really, we should just make that public, shouldn't we? And then maybe just do this. It's just gonna be Vic. And then we go biome rule, biome. So we're gonna say water is anywhere that the min height is less than min height is -1. Priority is 255, because if I say water, I want it to water. Max height is maybe you should do the other way. And say max height is 0. Room temperature is -1. Max temperature is 1. Min humidity is -1. Max humidity is 1. I think that's everything. We should definitely make a default fire rule. Wherever that is. Default. Oh. Fire rule. Default, and then so the environment will default to water. The priority will default to 0. I think. I'd have to check because I don't. Let me say that. Yeah, min temperature -1. Max is 1. Min is -1. Max is 1. Min is -1. Max is 1. Okay, that should mean that I can sort of more easily be all like we want to set water's max height and then be like dot default. Like that. And then we can see. Okay. So that's water. And we say grass is say min. Let me say max temperature is 0.5. 5. This is just a graph. Otherwise, it's environment is stone. Min height is 0. Min temperature is 0.5. Wow, now it's not minimum temperature. Okay. So that'll give us 3 rules. We get So I'm going to say gen world, but I'm going to say don't actually generate the world because that took way too long and I want to do something else instead. So what we're going to do, yep, that's not what I want to do. We're going to say images, which is going to be res, mute, assets, image. Okay, then we're going to say for 255, okay, no. So we're going to say, yep, image equals image new 5. The fuck is an extend 3D and how the hell do I use one? Dimension. To D2. Okay, so we need to actually pass in the data, which annoyingly means that we need to actually know. Texture format. RGB. RGB. The fuck is the default though? Okay. Is there nope, there's only RGB. Okay. Asset. Render asset. Render asset. We'll just call it all for as well. Okay. So let me just say like that data equals a vec. Width capacity 255 times 200 times 4. Well, actually, it'd be 256, wouldn't it? 2d6 times 2d6 times 4. Okay. Okay. Width 256. Height 256. Okay, and then depth of array 1. I'm using the Bevy's renderer. I don't know what it is. So basically, it's gonna go commands.spawn image bundle, and then we're just gonna say UI image. Wait, no, image bundle's not wrong. It's sprite bundle. Sprite bundle. Let me say texture, and then we say images dot add image like so. That should spawn our image in and render it properly. I don't know if it'll actually do that, but that's because I'm an idiot sometimes. Then we're going to say for y in 0.256 for x in 0.256. Can I borrow it? Oh, it's up here. We need this to be borrowed. Okay. That's not okay. And then we're going to say I think it's negative 128 to 128. 27. 27. Negative. Huh. And then we say that x. Oh, okay. First thing is no. It's gonna be. I'm oh, not 0, 0. Just trying to think how I want to do this because I want it to range from 0 to from -1 to 1. So first thing we need to do is insert the data. So we need to say let if color sRGBA color equals so it's descriptor dot map type dot get biome with a temperature that is equal to y as okay. So we need to say that temp equal y divided by as f32 divided by 128 minus 1. I think that should work, because divided by 128 should give you a value between 0 and 2, and then minusing 1 will give us a value between -1 and 1. So next we put in our temp. Then we're going to go let humidity, which is going to equal x as 32 divided by 128 minus 1. Okay, we're going to humidity, and then height, and then we'll say height is just that's difficult, because that kind of makes me think that I shouldn't factor height into the biomes, at least not immediately. Where have we made our descriptor? Because that's the issue, is that we've set our height. So we're going to comment out the heights, max height. Instead we should say that your min humidity is 0.75, and your max humidity is 0. Is 0. I have no idea how that's going to turn out in terms of when it generates, but that's kind of the point of making a visualizer. And then height is just going to be 0, because the idea is eventually I'll swap to a 3-dimensional visualizer. Dot color. And then we can say else panic, just because it shouldn't be. We'll change it to unreachable. Yeah, now it's technically more correct. Okay, and then we say that data dot push color dot red times 256 as U8. Okay, so we want to say green, blue, and alpha, and so that basically pushes the data into our thing, and that, I mean, it should work, because it should iterate through every single value from -1 to 1 for both the temperature, and set that color in the pixel spot, and then we're going to spawn in the thing down there, and we're going to run. And then we go play. There we go. It's a bit frozen. No, it's not frozen. Weird. Why can't I click that button? It's interesting. What did I break? Well, what I need to do is to go over here. Yeah, and well, I'm going to go to plugin. I'm going to say we need to register the type. Register type. Then we're going to say register map descriptor. And then this I'm just going to say on startup, because I don't know how long it'll take to run, but I can't be bothered trying to work out why the button's not working. It's slow and then it crashed. What did you ever? Okay. Texture binding 0 sample float. But okay. So expected sample type float. Okay. I did something wrong. So I don't mess with pictures. So apparently it's supposed to be float. But given a view with what? Okay. R16 float. No. Float. RGBA. Okay. Okay. So instead of doing that, it's data dot extend color dot red dot as to big endian bytes. Okay. Green, blue, alpha. Let me go back to our main and we go run again, and then hopefully we don't crash this time. Well, it seemed to have worked. There's this entity. Wherever this entity happens to be. Well, the issue is I can't seem to see. Well, for one thing, there's not enough data, because I didn't change the size of data, did I? Data would need to be times 4 times 4, because 256. But even then, it still should have rendered something. Surprised it didn't crash. Maybe it was putting something in the console I just didn't see. Still not seem to be running anything. Oh. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't know. It could be that I'm putting 0 in the alpha channel. So if we said like 1. 2 big endian bytes. Right, so I can call it on that. Oh, it's saying I can't call it without declaring its size. Okay. Still not working. Okay. Well, I don't know, and I think my brain is ready to shut down. I guess I spent too much time talking about AI instead of actually doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I hope you all enjoyed the stream, and I'm going to call it a day. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one.